Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. This is a podcast where I believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that we have a choice in the way that we handle the curveballs in our life. All of the things that come toward us that are a little unexpected. We're going to dive into that today in a really fun way. I can't wait to jump into the episode. Before we do, I want to give you a little synopsis of the podcast. This is something that is necessary because there are always new people coming into the podcast, and I'm constantly meeting people and they're finding the podcast for the first time or wanting to know about the podcast and so forth. So I think it's really important that you just have an overview of what has transpired in the podcast. In season 1, I felt completely compelled and directed to read my journal with you from when I was 15 and pregnant. That is not something that I think I would have naturally chose to do, but I felt very prompted in that share. And so we talk about everything that was happening in my life at the time, getting pregnant as a young teenager, navigating a really tough relationship, going through grief when my daughter passes away, and forgiveness and figuring out life, right? Figuring out how to rise above when it feels like life is knocking us out, right? And then in season 2, we go into the vulnerable side of the story from my current husband's point of view and how we came together after going out in the 6th grade and him liking me ever since. We sat down with someone that we had just met at our table for dinner and we told them our story, and she goes, "I'm shook. I am literally shook." And it's true. It's one of those stories. So it's kind of fun to go through it, right? And I recently met a woman who is going through so much of that rockiness in a relationship and trying to figure out if the relationship is, headed towards marriage or where it's really at, and the indecision inside of that. And I was like, oh my word, you just need to listen to this story. So that's a lot of what season 2 is about. And plus we also go through suicide. I mean, we have covered so many great and incredible topics here that it's just really great to be able to dive into all of it together, to learn how to find joy in the struggle and light in the darkness. And then in season 3, we are really just checking into all of the ways that we have power to create our internal state, like what is going on inside of us, and the way that allows us to check into joy and expansion. Anything that helps us walk out of negative patterns and into power, purpose, and possibility. In season 3, you'll see solo episodes from me, and you'll also see guest episodes and also the Hey Mish episodes where I get to hear from you. So if you've had a Hey Mish on your mind, don't forget to submit it. You know I love responding to your Hey Mish episodes. Okay, without any further ado, I'm really excited to tell you about our surprise We Got a Puppy story. Let's dive in. I have newfound empathy. Empathy for the guy on the other side of surprise we're pregnant. Because the woman gets like subtle warning signs. Even if this pregnancy is a surprise and not planned and not even really wanted, the woman has like subtle, like, oh my word, could I be? I think I am. And then time to process and all the stuff. The guy, when the girl, if she doesn't share those things with him, like maybe, right? Like all the maybes leading up, all of a sudden it's like, surprise, we're pregnant. And let me tell you why I have newfound empathy. Because, and this would not be the same for everybody who's listening, but my husband, quote, surprised us with a puppy. With a puppy. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was not like Christmas morning for me. And I know a lot of you might be animal lovers and might be thinking, what? That would be the best surprise ever. How could you even think that and all of this business? But let me give you a little bit of background. And then I want to talk to you about the choices that we have when we are thrown curveballs in our life. Okay. All right. So Friday night, my husband is like, hey, Mish, my dad really needs us. We're going to drive an hour away to go see him. And he never makes requests like this of us. So like, we've got to go. Right. And so we are all like, me and my other son that was just home with us at the time was like, okay, I'll go with you guys. We were just like, okay, we'll go to Cedar and we'll see what grandpa needs. No big deal. So we go to Cedar City. And as soon as we get there, there's like weird energy. And I'm like, what is going on? And he's like, just wait right here on the grass. Let me grab my dad. And that's the moment where I was like, what? My middle son was like, I knew all along that there was something fishy going on. But anyway, we're sitting there on the grass and like 2 seconds later, this guy pulls up and Jake's like, so I have this guy named Dallin and he gets out of the car with a dog. And immediately my stomach responded. I was like, no way. He's doing this. This is our dog. Oh my gosh. And I had what felt like this, physical response. This sort of like emotional upheaval over what's happening. And of course the dog's cute, which adds to like, okay, I'm just at this point breathing through it and trying to process. That's why it wasn't that great of a surprise for me. It didn't feel like Christmas morning. It felt more like shock. And here's the background. The background is I struggle with like animal smell. I really struggle like when a dog smells like the outdoors, or even worse. I struggle when a dog's breath is in my face and I'm like, no, I'm like, you guys love this dog. I'm good. Like, give me my bubble. I mean, I can be in someone's house that has a dog if they're clean, but if they're not, like, it is just a huge question for me. Like, why? Why would you let this animal into your life? And a huge part of that is because I've never had a huge emotional connection to an animal. I've never had that. We did have dogs growing up. We had dogs, but they were all outdoor dogs. None of the dogs were indoor. And this dog that my husband got is intended to be indoor. Okay. And I'm fully aware of that. And just so that I can give my husband a little bit of fairness, we had totally talked about dogs in the past and I had given a green light. So I knew that it would be so good for my family. It was just still a shock to me because I had not prepared at all for this moment. Okay. And I'm sorry for all of you who might be rolling your eyes, but I was the girl who was 3 years old who brought all of the puppies into the bathroom and started washing them in the toilet. Because at 3 years old, I could not handle them being dirty. I was the girl who my mom could dress in white and send me out to the sandbox and I would come back in clean. I was the girl who tried to take a bath with our cat, even though my mom warned me. I washed, like I was probably like 12 years old when I took on the chore to wash my sister's outdoor dog, which was an Irish setter. And it's a, fairly big dog. And he totally let me wash him and everything. I sprayed him off and then he shook, which is always like, ugh, but whatever. And then like 2 seconds later, he ran away and rolled in the dirt. And I was appalled. Like my heart sank. I was like, what? That's so sad. And I also wonder too, if a part of this kind of comes back to just the way that I was when I was young. I always really tried to control my own environment and have a very clean room. I didn't grow up having a very fastidious home. which is just fine. It is what it is. But for me, the way that I tick, like I needed that. It was like a sense of control for me. And so that's also what I feel like I'm facing. It's really cool to see like actually what this brings up for me and the practices of letting go. I'm not really willing to let go of things on a level did you ever read the book Marley and Me? I read that book and I was appalled because this dog like totally destroyed their life. Like all their furniture, chewed through. I mean, literally the most horrific stories that for me, I wouldn't be able to handle. But I hope all of what I just explained to you helps you understand just a little bit around why it feels like such a shift for me to be able to come into a space where I'm like, yeah, we live with a dog. Thumbs up. In fact, it's really funny because one of my friends, we have a sort of an inside joke because when her husband found out that we didn't have a dog, he said to her, "Isn't that kind of like un-American or something?" So the first person I messaged was her, and I was like, I guess I'm American now. I guess I'm an American. And you know what? I hope you're laughing because all in stride. Like everything I'm saying to you is just to help you understand that like it's a shift for me to come into a place where we own a dog, where we have a dog. Every single person in our family is like, what? My own sister was like, you guys always play jokes. I think you're joking. Like, show me proof. And for days in a row after she would like FaceTime us, her and her son would FaceTime us to see if it was real. Because we just never, people that know me well know that that's like a thing for me, right? I would actually be super curious to know how many people even feel like that because I bet it's kind of small. I bet a lot of people are more so on the fence of like, yeah, animals, we live with our animals, no big deal, you know? But yeah, so a big curveball for me, for my life. And you know, in baseball, when a pitcher throws a curveball, it's really just an unpredictable turn as it sails over the home plate that takes the batter off guard so that they essentially can get them out, right? So they swing and they miss. So they're not hitting the ball or hitting the target, right? And that is definitely how it has felt to me. Luckily, we are in this a week and I'm not in the same energy as I was last week. And it's been in phases, right? So immediately as it happened, I was like reminding myself, like, it's okay. Like, your way isn't the only way. And it's funny when we are taking it apart as a dog, right? Or a puppy, that to a lot of you that are listening seems like nothing. But what about the big curveballs that show up in your life that feel big to you, right? Like, how do we handle it? How do we move through it? How do we look at it differently than being just a setback or a failure? So that's kind of what I really want to dive into today, referencing this story of the puppy. So I'm just going to give you a couple of pointers, and I don't think that it's necessarily that they are in order, but just things that can help you check in and create the life around the curveball instead of feeling like a victim and like you are literally being hit by the curveball. And let's just say it's going 90 miles an hour, okay? Whatever it is that's happening for you in your life. So the first thing is really just take a moment to think and reframe the situation. Try to really see the curveball as an opportunity to learn and to grow. And that might not come right away, right? We might need to go through some of the other steps before it's automatic for us to just think through. I remember when the dog came out of the car, my mother-in-law looked immediately at my face to see how I would react. And I think also to maybe see if I knew what was happening. Like, she knew it would be a thing for me. which is interesting, right? But I think instead of just losing your cool in a situation, and this takes, I think this takes mindfulness practice, practice in being present, practice in being patient, practice in being a person who gathers the full story before you make conclusions. But, just taking a moment to step back from the situation, even if it's just in your own mind, and maybe you need to change locations, right? But to think about it and to give yourself a little bit of space. So immediately in these moments of the surprise, I knew that this dog would be good for our family as a whole. I knew that I had given Jake sort of the sign off years ago, and I knew that he would honor my requests. So like my requests were, that the dog was hypoallergenic, that it was clean, and that it was well trained. Like those are things that were not negotiable for me to be able to have a dog. And like I took a moment and reminded myself, like he knows those things, and I really have a lot of trust in him. And I know that that's not always a side of whatever situation that we're going through, but ultimately it's being able to challenge yourself in your mind to be able to flip the script, to be able to see if there's a different way to look at the situation than it is immediately coming up for you. And then looking to possible reasons that it could have happened or why it is happening. Sometimes when we're so attached to life going the way that we've planned it, or it's really difficult to see like, oh, I can see that this might be opening another door that is not possible without this, right? So it's just a good opportunity to challenge your beliefs and to just say, is everything I know about this really true? And is there anything that I'm not seeing? And then something that's really huge for me is to remind myself to just take one step at a time. Like we don't have to make all the decisions right away. So those first few days, sometimes I would start to reel, kind of get out a little bit out of control with my thoughts. Like, okay, what is it? What if the puppy this? What if, and then, oh my, I'm just kind of like going down the thought processes of like, oh my word, my brain is kind of going in the direction that I don't want it to go. I need to shift. I need to shift those thoughts and to remind myself that I don't have to have all of the decisions, made right away, and to take one step at a time. One step at a time. It's okay. And then I think it's great to observe your internal experiences. Like immediately I understood that I was having a physical response, and there was no question to me that it was associated with what was happening. It happened like right as I started to get all these cramps in my stomach. I felt that pressure in my back. It just felt like there was a lot going on in, where you store stress. And it was immediate. And what's important is to recognize what's happening, not to criticize, yourself for that, whatever is happening. Being able to sort of label and talk yourself through those emotions, like seeing, okay, I'm feeling this, it's in my stomach, I'm aware, it's a physical sensation, and then just pay attention to it changing from moment to moment, like what is actually happening with it. And sometimes we've done the podcast in the past, where Rachel Broomberger came on and she kind of just said, like, recognize that your body's talking to you. So being able to say like, yeah, okay, it's okay. I'm getting the message, and I'm doing what I can about it. Thank you, body, for giving me this trigger, right? It's really good. And then noticing that the next actions that you take help support your body, right? So taking those mindful breaths and being intentional about shifting your energy. So the curveball is causing stress, and when we give our body the space to process it somatically, we're giving our body the best chance at responding and clearing out the stress so that then we can think clearly in our mind and we can approach the situation from the best angle possible. We're not even going to say that like, the best possible way in the whole world, but the best way that we can in those moments. And that is also allowing ourselves grace that it might not be how we wish it was. That's okay. And my very favorite way to shift my energy is what I tell you all the time is heart coherence, is going into my heart and being able to generate heart feelings and heart emotions, because it helps override the other, negative feelings, right? When we're feeling those high level feelings, it's taking us out of low level emotions and helping bring us into high level feelings. So as we also step into those high level feelings, that can be stepping into love, gratitude, and so trying to pick those feelings out of the situation that you're experiencing. Like maybe you're seeing the better side, like giving someone the benefit of the doubt. Like for me, for my husband, being like, I know he would have chose the best things for me. I know he still has our family like at the top of his mind. He's thinking that this would be the best thing for the boys. I believe that he is making his best choice. So like giving him the benefit of the doubt at the same time allows me to step into gratitude. And so being aware of that feeling you carry. So not every single thing has been peaches, obviously, since we brought this dog home. This dog has peed on my carpet, and it's a joke in our house that when this dog does something wrong or bad, I'm like, get your dog, take care of your dog. I'm like, and the kids are joking, like every time the dog does something bad, it's our dog, but then it's like our family dog. I get it. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's okay. And then my other one was like, it's okay. Well, then you don't get to do like all the positive things of it, the snuggles and all of that stuff. I'm like, sweetheart, like I didn't say this to him, but I'm like thinking like, I'm really okay with that. Trust me, I know this dog will grow on me, and I'm pretty sure that there will be a day that I will say, like, what in heaven's name would we ever have done without this dog? I get it. Like, I know that people have those shifts, and I'm in a space where I'm like, okay, show me the money. That line from Jerry Maguire. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Just show me, like, I'm here for it. I'm okay, like, to be in this. But there are frustrating feelings. One of the first normal days, back in the house after the weekend and all of the things that were going on, my husband was fixing my car for me. And then likewise, the puppy is in the house and I'm trying to work and, like, oh, let me take you out to go potty and like trying to be like a good dog owner. And we had this little puddle of water underneath the trampoline. And the dog had started to like run towards the water. And I was like, hey, come here. Stop, come, trying to remember in a moment's notice, like whatever we had been like taught or, whatever commands we were trying to learn. Because at that point we hadn't even done like any puppy training. That was another thing that kind of felt like a little bit off to me. Like I was like, I would have rather had our family be prepared, or at least Jake and I, with like puppy training and like what you do and stuff like that. In hindsight, it's all working out and it's okay. But the dog had this instant where it went 3 different times underneath the tramp into this area of water where water was collecting. And on the 3rd time, he sat down in the water and he got like muddy. And that felt really frustrating to me. And so here I am, like feeling upset and frustrated at the dog, carrying the dog in. And we have 2 setups. We have like an enclosure, which is like a bigger area by the kitchen. That's kind of a, he's got like a bed in there and it's open. He can see everybody. And then we have his kennel, which is in our room and it's smaller, it just fits him right now. And I marched right in and put him in his kennel. Like I was really upset at him. And for me, like it automatically triggers how much I really don't like to be inconvenienced when I'm trying to like move my energy forward, like in my workday and so forth. And at the same time, like I'm studying the subtle pride, spiritually, I'm at the same time studying like subtle pride of how we think we are so important when we're being inconvenienced, and that's like a little bit of subtle pride. And I just am like, are you kidding me? You can't make this stuff up, you know? And so it's great because I can stand back and go, okay, I'm learning at the same time, but it didn't take away the frustration in the moment. In the moment, I still felt like, you know, and frustrated because I am used to being a person who can control my environment. And puppies, you have to train for them to be able to respond. I wouldn't even call it control but it's just so interesting how it asks us to step forward whenever we're thrown a curveball and to learn more and more about ourselves, more and more about us, and how much more we still have to let go of to make sure that we are in high and good feelings. Being aware of the feelings that we carry and being willing to take a look at what it's showing us. I think that's a really important step in seeing the way that we respond when curveballs show up in our life. Because ultimately, I think if we stay there, we miss out on what could be there, right? Something better could exist there. But as long as I want to stay in frustration, I'm missing out on it. Make sense? All right, so just two more here for you. One of them is just establishing new habits, right? Go back to the situation, look at it, take action in line with what you value, what's important to you. And you might not always get like the best, like what your choice would be inside of it, but you do get to choose like the way that you are acting or responding or any of, right? It's kind of always like that axiom of thinking I am creating my life versus letting life happen to me. And we have to be able to come out of negative feelings to be able to step into that, to establish new habits. So inside of this, like after the frustrating day, I was able to say some of the things I was feeling to Jake, not in like where I was crazy mad or anything, but a conversation where it was just like, you know, I actually really feel a lot around like us not even being prepared for this puppy yet. And I think that brings more frustration because then in the moments where the puppy is doing something that it shouldn't be doing, we don't even know how to act. We're not acting correctly around the way that you train a puppy, right? And so we were able to establish, okay, we're gonna do this puppy training. And luckily, literally, like we've had so many great conversations, like a couple with my cousins and a couple with friends who've really pointed us towards good things and given us things and helped us, you know, to create a really good environment for this really beautiful dog. I still can't even believe I'm saying that. Being in a different energy really allowed us to establish new habits, new ways to respond, new ways to be able to create what we want. Like learning that we got to do everything we can when this dog is a puppy before it gets set in its ways, to expose it to lots of different things, to train it in ways like we're going to shower or bathe this puppy every single week. That's going really well. You know, brushing his teeth, you know, clipping or filing his nails, desensitizing him, exposing him to new things, right? So that he kind of becomes like used to being introduced to lots of things. So there's not as many threats, so that when there is a threat, it's a really good thing and he lets us know, but he's not just going to freak out if some stranger comes up to us or, you know what I mean, in a very kind spirit or whatever. I don't know. Obviously, we're still learning. We're still learning. And as a family, we're watching like training videos all the time right now, where we kind of gather and we'll just watch a couple of them and then we try to implement them. And gosh, I can really see that we're going to be having a lot of benefit. And so this leads into the next step of really building a solid foundation, defining our purpose, our goals, our dreams, and making a plan to succeed. And I really do know that a puppy like this can bring a family closer together, right? Because we're working together to achieve a goal, to be able to have, oh, did you hear that? I actually didn't tell anybody I was recording, but I hope you heard that little puppy bark in the background just so that you could get, there's your proof, right? This is no joke. Anyway, yeah, so just the idea of being able to create a situation where we do have a very well-trained puppy, and the bigger goal or purpose is really to have a deep connection with an animal who is like therapy, right? For so many of us that need it. We all need that. We all need to be accepted. We all need true unconditional acceptance, which is what an animal gives. Humans, we try and we try and we try, but truly like not having anything in the way of acceptance and love, that comes from an animal. And I know that there will be stuff about responsibility and making good decisions and quick decisions and, being able to put someone else in front of your own needs. And these are, I'm sure that the list will continue to go on and on of the benefits that this dog brings into our life. And I'm really glad that I can be in that space. So whatever it is that your curveball is, trying to look at the benefits, trying to see what it is bringing to you, what you're learning and how you're growing through it, not just going through it, is the important point of this entire episode. Understanding that we truly have a choice in how we respond. We have a choice in our energy and in the story that we choose to adapt around the event. I certainly could have chose to be a victim. I certainly could have chose to be like, I can't believe you sprung that on me, and I could hang on to that for a really long time. But one thing that I know more than anything is that the energy that I choose to create is not only felt by me, but by everyone in this house and the ripple effect outside of this house, and even bigger, the dog. And why would that be so important? Because dogs are intuitive beings and they feel our energy. If I do my best and I have good energy around this, it cannot help but help this puppy come into a really great pattern for its life, a place where it feels and knows it's loved. So what's really great about this episode is that I'm going to have to tag it. And if I feel frustrated, come back and listen to it, right? Remind myself, really, I know what to do. I know to go inside. I know how to shift my energy and take some breaths and maybe take some distance around it. But also just to have great expectations that it really will go well, that it will be the best that it could possibly be. And when we have those types of expectations, and when we have that type of energy, we generally attract those things into our life. So remember that life throws you curveballs. And for us, life will not always be how we planned, but our greatest feats will be determined by how we respond and create our life inside of the curveballs. And I hope that you can see how much power you have inside of the curveballs in your life. All right, my friend, I hope you had a really great takeaway from the message today. I hope that somehow you were able to look at something in your life that's going on that you didn't really plan for, but maybe be able to see it from a different perspective. As a reminder, it really helps the podcast when you subscribe and write a review, no matter what platform you're on. If you're on Spotify or Apple or Audible, wherever it is that you are consuming your podcasts, it would be super helpful if you subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss any episodes that are up and coming. And we have some really super fun ones coming up. I'm excited that we have a few more guests coming on. That'll be super fun. But also so that you can rate and review the podcast. That's really, really helpful in the arena of our podcast growth. So just thank you so much to those of you who have done that. I wanted to give a shout out to Justin, who left us a review on Audible. He said, "Full of love. Felt the message resonate in my heart and how important it is to follow those promptings to help others around you. Jake, what an amazing listening voice he has. Loved the mix-up you both did." So that was obviously a review from season 2 when Jake came on the podcast a lot. And yeah, season 2 was so fun when we had Jake on a lot. And he really does have a great recording voice. So thank you so much, Justin, for that review and just an encouragement. I would love to read more reviews from you here on the podcast and just say thank you. Say thank you for being a listener and for your gratitude and appreciation and whatever it is that you're getting on the podcast that we can share with others. Just love it so much. All right, before we end, I want to leave you with a quote from Maya Angelou. She said, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it." Until next time, my friend.